Shocking truth. Poor girl shows up shoeless for interview. You won't believe what happens next. In a world where first impressions mean everything, how could anyone possibly walk into an important job interview without shoes? The chilling story of Sarah Johnson took everyone by storm, a name that had everyone talking. This wasn't just any girl. She was a young woman with dreams bigger than the sky itself, and an undeniable spark of resilience shining through her sad eyes. As she stepped into the gleaming lobby of the high-rise building, gasps echoed around her. The click of her bare feet against the polished marble was like a haunting melody, a stark reminder of the struggles she faced every day. A soft murmur swept through the crowd of polished professionals, their sharply tailored suits standing in stark contrast to Sarah's tattered jeans. She felt their eyes boring into her skin, a thousand judgments slicing through her like a knife. Why was she even there? What could possess someone to put themselves in such a vulnerable position? As the receptionist raised an eyebrow, Sarah's heart raced, a lump forming in her throat. What could have driven her to this? Was it desperation? Was it courage? She had a story to tell. Somewhere in those streets, in that mixed scent of coffee and rain, lay a past filled with beating hearts and broken dreams. Just last night she had scoured her empty apartment for anything that could make her feel a little more presentable, a little more worthy. That pair of shoes, once a part of her, now worn down and lost in the chaos of her life, was nowhere to be found. Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. In this sea of judgmental glances, there was something more. Whispers of something she couldn't quite make out floated through the air, hinting at a deeper mystery rooted in the very building she stood in. Had there been rumors swirling among the office workers about the interview? What secrets lurked behind the heavy mahogany doors where executives sat, waiting to decide her fate? The moment had come. With no shoes and a heart full of dreams, Sarah pushed the door open, her breath catching as she stepped inside the stark conference room. Would they see her for the fighter she was, or only notice the girl without shoes? Would she make them believe in her? As she faced the panel of stone-faced interviewers, she couldn't help but wonder, did she just step into a world of opportunity, or a trap that would crush her spirit? The heavy door clicked shut behind Sarah, sealing her in a world that felt simultaneously promising and perilous. As she stood before the panel, the sterile air turned thick with unspoken expectations, each glance from the interviewers piercing her like needles. They were dressed to the nines, their crisp suits a glaring reflection of her disheveled state. The lead interviewer, a man with steely eyes framed by slicked back hair, set the tone. "Miss Johnson," he began, his voice cold and calculated, "can you explain your choice of attire?" The question hung in the air like a weight. Sarah could feel the heat rising to her cheeks. She had rehearsed answers to difficult questions 1,000 times, but nothing could prepare her for this moment, the harsh, visceral reality of her situation. "I was unable to find my shoes," she managed to stammer, her voice quaking, carried by the winds of vulnerability. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room. Was she really standing there, barefoot and exposed, trying to fight for her place? A knot formed in her stomach as the whispers multiplied like thunder echoing in the distance. "An unfortunate situation, I'm sure," the interviewer replied, a hint of disbelief leaking into his tone. The others nodded, their expressions a mixture of sympathy and judgment. "But tell us, why should we overlook this minor?" His eyes flicked to her forgotten footgear problem. Taking a deep breath, Sarah straightened her shoulders. "Because I'm determined. I'm willing to rise above obstacles," she declared, each word fueled by memories of late nights and early mornings, of skipped meals and dreams nearly out of reach. "I've fought for everything I've had, and I don't plan to stop now." As the words left her lips, she felt a flicker of something. Was it hope? For the briefest of moments, she allowed herself to believe. But just as quickly, doubt washed over her. Would they even hear her? Interesting perspective, the interviewer said, his voice dripping with skepticism. But real potential doesn't come without polish. Can you tell us about a time when you truly succeeded? Something that demonstrates your perseverance? She hesitated, the abyss of memories swirling inside her. Images of her nights hustling in a local diner flashed through her mind. Serving tables while studying, stretching every dollar, but always hopeful for a better tomorrow. Would they accept that as success? Last year, I got promoted at work, she began, emboldened by the smile that crept onto her face as she relayed the story of being recognized for her dedication. I turned around a struggling evening shift, and a loud bang interrupted her, making everyone jump. The door to the conference room swung open, revealing a harried assistant, her face flushed and panicked. "Sir, we have a situation." The atmosphere shifted drastically. Sarah's heart raced. What situation? Was this a twist of fate, or a stroke of bad luck? The lead interviewer's expression darkened as he rose from his seat. "I'll be right back," he snapped, striding out without a backward glance. The other interviewers exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier determination now clouded by uncertainty. Sarah was left standing alone, anxiety tangling in her thoughts. What on earth was happening outside that demanded their attention? In the eerie silence, she couldn't shake the feeling that her moment of truth was slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. What awaited her once the door swung open again? Would she walk out covered in shame, or would this be the breakthrough she had been praying for? And then her phone buzzed in her pocket, a reminder that the world outside kept spinning, but she had no clue what news might await her. The vibration of her phone pierced through the thick tension, snapping Sarah back to the present. A message blipped onto the screen, its presence a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding around her. She glanced down, curiosity battling her instinct to focus on the looming interview. The sender was an unknown number, with just 2 words flickering on the screen: "Help me." Her heart raced, dread unfurling like a dark cloud. Who was reaching out? Was it real or merely a cruel joke? She felt trapped in a glass box, the 4 walls of the conference room closing in on her. But before she could react further, the other interviewers started murmuring amongst themselves, glancing nervously at each other, their collective anxiety rising like steam in a boiling pot. "Is it really that bad?" one whispered, their voice barely carrying over the tense silence. "I heard it involves security," another murmured back, glancing towards the door the lead interviewer had exited. Anxiety tightened its grip, squeezing the breath from Sarah's chest. What on earth could be happening? Her instincts screamed at her to dig deeper, but there was nowhere to go. She tucked the phone away, forcing herself to focus. This job, it meant everything. It was her ticket out, away from the life that had haunted her, plagued with loss and despair. But now, with uncertainty and fear in the air, it felt like standing on a cliff's edge. Suddenly, the door swung open again. The lead interviewer returned, his face more solemn this time, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk. "Where were we?" he asked, but the words lacked their previous coldness, now tinged with urgency. Feeling as if the air was thickening, Sarah felt the room spin momentarily. "I was just explaining my promotion," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. She needed to keep moving forward. "I transformed a difficult situation into an opportunity," but the lead interviewer didn't seem to be listening. His attention strayed to the clock on the wall, frustration etched across his features. "You'll have to forgive me, but it's more critical than ever that we find someone who can handle pressure," he said, his voice taut. Before she could even think of a response, they were interrupted again. The door flung open, and with it, a figure all too familiar stepped into view: Eric, her former coworker, his expression wild and frantic. "Sarah, you need to come." His words died on his lips as eyes snapped towards him. The atmosphere crackled with confusion. Sarah's thoughts raced. She hadn't seen Eric in months. Why was he here? What did he want? "Miss Johnson, please focus," the interviewer demanded, irritation slicing through the air like a serrated knife. But everything felt misplaced now. She was flooded with emotion, caught off guard by the man who'd once been her confidant. "Eric, what's wrong?" she blurted, her heartbeat roaring in her ears. "I can't. There's a situation. Something big is happening that you need to know." He stepped closer, voice lowered almost to a whisper, urgency lining his brow. Her heart thudded loudly as all eyes turned towards Eric, confusion and apprehension pulsating around the room. Sarah's gaze darted between him and the interview panel, wondering what moment in time had brought this rush of chaos. "Sarah," Eric continued, desperation etched in every line of his face. "We can't wait. You need to." But just as he was about to reveal more, the lights flickered, casting a shadow across the room. "What the hell?" one of the interviewers exclaimed, and a sense of impending doom hung heavily in the air. All at once, it clicked for Sarah. This could change everything. Who would get the job now? What had Eric stumbled upon? As the lights blinked again, uncertainty gripped her. It felt as if the ground was shifting beneath her feet. She was standing on a precipice where secrets blended with reality. And before she could silence the thoughts swirling inside her head, she realized that her biggest challenge was no longer convincing the panel of her worth. It was discovering the truth Eric was so desperately trying to unveil. What had he seen? And why was it so important? The tension in the room felt electric, and amidst the questions, one stood out, an undeniable truth awaiting clarity. Would she dare follow Eric into the chaos beyond the door? Sarah's heart raced, a cacophony of fear and uncertainty pounding in her ears. The flickering lights above felt like a prelude to something dark. Eric's wide-eyed expression, frantic and desperate, drew her in like a moth to a flame. She could feel the panel's eyes bore into her back, but all she could focus on was Eric's urgent presence. "Come on, Sarah!" he urged, voice strangled with panic. "This isn't the time. We need to go now." "Where?" The question slipped out, but he didn't answer. Instead, he glanced over his shoulder, his nervous energy palpable. Something deep within her stirred, a primal instinct urging her to trust him, to break free from the constraining walls of the interview room. The lead interviewer's irritation snapped like a tight rope. "This isn't appropriate, Eric. You need to leave." His voice sliced through the tension, but it only intensified Sarah's sense of urgency. "No!" she exclaimed, surprising even herself. "What's going on? You can't just barge in here without telling me." The room fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down on everyone. Eric took a deep breath, his voice lowering to a near whisper. "There's a security breach. They're targeting people at the company. You're on their list." A chill washed over her. "Targeting? What do you mean? Who? Does it matter?" His eyes flared with an intensity that sent shivers down her spine. "You're not safe. We need to leave, Sarah. Now." The words hung heavy in the air. The panel looked between them, dawning realization mingling with disbelief painted across their faces. Sarah's gut twisted into knots. She glanced at the clock on the wall. It was ticking down, each second like a countdown to an inevitable explosion. "Enough." The lead interviewer stood, glancing between Eric and Sarah. "This is unacceptable. You're jeopardizing this process. Let her go." Eric's voice rang out, sharper now, tinged with frustration and fear. "You don't understand what's at stake." But Sarah didn't need convincing. The flickering lights, the mounting tension, and now Eric's warning erupted into a desperate clarity. She was tired of being stuck in the shadows, afraid to take action. No more. "Fine." She stood abruptly, adrenaline surging through her veins like fire. She locked eyes with the lead interviewer. "If you want someone who can handle pressure, then you should know I'm not backing down. I'm going with him." Gasps filled the room, surprise and disbelief ricocheting off the walls. The skeptics among the interviewers shifted uncomfortably, while the urgency hung like a fog around their heads. Eric stepped to her side, eyes wide. "Are you sure?" His voice betrayed a flicker of hope. "I'm sure." The conviction in her voice surprised even her. She glanced around the panel, the weight of their judgment heavy but inconsequential against the impending dread of the unknown. As she and Eric moved toward the door, a sudden loud crash echoed through the building, making the glass windows tremble. Her heart stopped momentarily. What was that? A voice shouted from behind them. Eric grasped her arm tightly, pulling her through the door. We have to move. They've found us. Adrenaline surged as they stepped into the hall. Panic thrummed in the air, swirling around them like a tempest. The chaotic sounds of people shouting and sirens wailing crescendoed beyond the glass doors. Stay close, Eric commanded, his hand firm on her shoulder. The world outside loomed threateningly, chaos against the order she desperately tried to grasp. They rounded the corner, and into the unknown. Sarah's mind raced, each heartbeat a reminder, what had she just stepped into? Before them lay the maze of hallways, each turn shrouded in shadows that whispered of danger. As they hurried along, she felt a gnawing fear mixed with exhilaration. But after a few frantic steps, an idea pierced through the haze. Eric, what did you see? He hesitated, fear clouding his eyes, but the weight of her question pulled on him. Sarah, if I tell you just then, another loud crash echoed from the far end of the building, sending both of them to a halt. And as a security alarm blared to life, the fact settled in her mind. They were far from safe. What was chasing them? And more importantly, who could she trust? They pressed on, urgency driving every step. The sound of chaos echoed around them, but Sarah's focus narrowed. Eric looked more shaken than she felt, sweat gleaming on his brow. Every time they heard a footstep behind, a fresh wave of panic surged through her. Eric, she whispered, her voice barely above the din, where do we go? We can't just run aimlessly. He shot her a glance, one that mixed reassurance with dread. There's an emergency exit on the lower level. We have to reach it. Why are they after me? She asked, almost incredulous, but more fearful than ever. Because they see you as a threat. Or as leverage. I don't know. His frustration cut through her. But before she could process his words, another crash reverberated through the building, more violent this time. It sent vibrations through the floor, and Sarah staggered, gripping his arm for support. Keep moving, he urged, yanking her forward. They hurried down a narrow corridor, the walls dimly lit with flickering bulbs that cast twisting shadows. The panic behind them felt alive, breathing down their necks. Each sound a shout, a scream sent adrenaline coursing through her veins, making her limbs feel electrified. What if? She began, but Eric shook his head firmly. No time for what-ifs. Just trust me. The weight of fear gripped her chest, but she nodded. They turned sharply and stumbled into a wide-open atrium. Glass walls surrounded them, offering a view to the chaotic scene outside, cars screeching to a halt, security forces swarming the area like bees roused from their hive. Eric, she gasped. If we go out there, they'll see us. Not if we move fast. His voice was urgent but infused with determination. We're not dying here. Not today. As they pressed against the walls, each fragment of her mind screamed for a plan. Panic had a way of distorting everything. She could barely think straight. With each passing moment, reality sank deeper into the chaos surrounding them. Just then, a figure appeared at the far end of the atrium, a man clad in dark clothing, his face obscured by a hood. The sight sent a jolt down her spine. He was scanning the area, eyes narrowed, like a predator hunting its prey. Eric! Stay down! His tone turned fierce, and they ducked behind a long table stacked with old magazines and discarded papers. Sarah could practically feel her heart pulsating in her throat. Do you think he saw us? She asked, her breath shaky. Shh! A deafening sound shattered the moment a gunshot rang out, echoed sharp and full. People outside screamed, and chaos erupted. Sarah's heart raced even faster. She could feel her palpitations all the way to her fingertips. Run! Eric screamed, surging from their cover. They dashed toward the exit, dodging debris that fell from above. The sight of the open door sent a rush of warmth to her chest, a fleeting promise of safety igniting her hope. But then another shot struck the air, ricocheting so close Sarah felt the wind of its passage. She gasped, stumbling yet again, fear clawing at her. "Don't look back!" Eric yelled, practically dragging her now. The urgency to escape propelled them forward. They reached the door, and the heavy metal frame loomed like a portal to freedom. As they burst through, the blaring alarm became a cacophony of terror. The world outside was more chaotic than she could have imagined. Police sirens blared. People were running everywhere, their faces twisted with fear. But when they finally stumbled outside, seeking to blend into the throng, something shifted in the air. A shadow moved among the crowd, the hooded man from the atrium. "Sarah!" he shouted, pointing directly at them. Panic raced through her veins as she locked eyes with Eric. The very ground beneath her felt unstable, and for a brief moment, everything seemed to slow. "Go!" Eric shouted, but she hesitated. Who was he? Why was he after them? In that frozen heartbeat of hesitation, the world crashed back into motion. And out from the shadows, the chase began anew. What hidden truths awaited them, and could their bond withstand the onslaught? They sprinted into the crowd, adrenaline coursing through them like wildfire. Sarah's heart thumped violently against her ribcage, drowning out all other sounds as the chaos enveloped them. Each second felt like an eternity, each footstep a reminder of their pursuer. "Eric!" she gasped, glancing back to see the hooded figure weaving through the mass of people, relentless as a heat-seeking missile. "He is still coming." "I know," Eric replied, breath ragged, sweat trailing down his forehead. "We need to find a place to hide, somewhere he can't spot us." Desperation surged through her. "There! That alley!" She pointed down a narrow passage between two buildings, the shadows stretching invitingly. He nodded. "Go!" They darted towards the alley, slipping between people who merely glanced at them, oblivious to the danger trailing so closely behind. The bustling city seemed to swallow their fear, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that the man would follow them anywhere. As they reached the alley, they pressed against the cool brick wall, hearts racing. Sarah dared to peek back at the street. The figure had vanished, but the fear coiled tightly in her chest. "What do we do now?" "Catch a breath," Eric replied, leaning against the wall. "We're safe for now." "Safe?" She couldn't feel it. "He-s out there. Why was he looking for me? What does he want?" Eric ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "There's no way to know without understanding who he is. But I can guess he's not going to stop until he gets what he wants." "Which is what?" she pressed, panic rising again. Before he could respond, they heard footsteps echoing down the alley. Sarah's blood ran cold. "Shoo!" Eric hissed, pulling her further back into the shadows. They held their breath, listening intently as the footsteps drew nearer. The cold grip of fear settled deep, wrapping around her entire body. "Where are you, Sarah?" The voice was smooth, almost unnervingly calm. It sliced through the tension, chilling her to her core. She glanced up at Eric, wide-eyed. "He knows my name?" "Stay quiet." His voice was a fierce whisper. Keen eyes peered around the corner, searching. Sarah could see the edge of the hood's fabric brushing against the brick as he maneuvered. The alley was quiet except for the raspy sound of her breathing. Moments stretched into what felt like eons. Then, as if losing interest, the figure moved further down the alley, employing a slow, stalking gait as he vanished into the shadows beyond. A breath of relief escaped Sarah. "He-s gone, right?" Eric remained vigilant, eyes scanning the surroundings. "We can't count on that. We have to move." Just as they prepared to slip deeper into the bowels of the city, Sarah felt a sudden shiver crawling up her spine. What if he knows something about me? In that instant, Eric stepped closer, his eyes aflame with determination. "Then we need to find out what it is. Whatever truth you're keeping is worth something to him, and until you confront it, he won't leave you alone." The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, a looming shadow hazing her thoughts. "You think I have something to do with this?" she whispered, grappling with the fear that the unknown truth was worse than the danger chasing them. "Let us not speculate. Let us just keep moving." Sarah couldn't help but feel a growing sense of dread, though. What if he was right? What hidden secrets waited for them? As they stepped cautiously from the alley into the tumult of the street, an alarming thought struck her. What if I'm the target because of what I don't know? Before Eric could answer, the shrill sound of sirens pierced the air once more, rising in a crescendo that felt like a warning. All at once, chaos erupted anew around them. And there stood the hooded man once more, closing in, with a purpose she could almost feel. "Sarah!" he shouted, capturing her attention in a way that felt unescapable. She froze, a sense of impending doom washing over her. In that moment, she understood. The chase had only just begun, and answers were lurking just out of reach, ready to shatter everything. She thought she knew. Could she unravel the tangled web before it ensnared her for good? "Run!" Eric shouted, grabbing Sarah's hand and pulling her back into the alley. The sound of her name echoed in the chaos like a haunting melody. She could feel his urgency breath on her neck, pushing her forward, further away from the terrifying threat that loomed behind them. They tore down the alley, slick with rain and litter, desperate for any means of escape. Sarah's breath came in short gasps, her mind racing as the looming figure followed them like a shadow, its relentless pursuit tightening the coils of anxiety in her chest. "Where do we go?" she cried, her voice barely audible over the thumping of their feet against the wet pavement. Panic threatened to spill over, but Eric's grip on her hand steadied her. "There." He pointed to a dimly lit door at the end of the narrow passage. It looked like an entrance to a basement, uninviting and grim. "We can't go out onto the street. We need to hide." They dashed towards the door, hand in hand, and Eric's heart pounded in rhythm with Sarah's own. They reached the door just as footsteps echoed behind them, the shadow closing in with chilling precision. Eric yanked the heavy door and they slipped inside, the darkness swallowing them whole. Inside, the air was cool and musty. Sarah fumbled for the light switch, her hands trembling. The bare bulb cast a weak glow, illuminating a small room filled with empty crates and discarded furniture. Dust hung suspended in the air, and an old furnace huddled in one corner, the shadows clinging to its rusted sides like ghosts. "Stay quiet," Eric whispered again, though his voice trembled with uncertainty. They crouched behind a stack of crates, hearts drumming in sync with the whisper of the wind outside. From the darkness, they could hear the low murmurs of the chaotic street. Sirens wailed, voices raised in alarm, and then the unmistakable sound of footsteps approaching their hiding place. The hooded figure was getting closer. "Do you think he saw us?" Sarah could barely keep the quiver from her voice. "I don't know," Eric replied, his expression tense. "But we can't stay here forever." The footsteps halted, and a palpable silence enveloped them. Sarah's heart felt like it was lodged in her throat. She dared to peer around the crates, frustration flickering as she strained to catch a glimpse of the street. In that silence, Sarah's mind raced back over the fragmented memories that had haunted her since the moment she spotted that sinister figure. Why was he after her? The piercing gaze, the intensity of his presence. There had to be something more. With every heartbeat, a dreadful thought gnawed at her insides. "What if he's the reason I have these strange memories?" she whispered, her voice barely more than a ghost. "What if he knows something about me I don't?" Eric's face softened in understanding but hardened again quickly. "That doesn't matter now. We need to focus on what's happening right in front of us." "Like what?" she shot back, her fear morphing into frustration. "We can't ignore the possibility that my past could explain this." His eyes widened, realization striking. "You think he could have something to do with your family? With why we're running?" Before she could respond, the door creaked slightly, just enough for dread to creep in. The figure was near, hovering outside, his breath steady and calm, a predator savoring the thrill of the chase. "Sarah!" he called again, more sinister this time. "I know you're in there. You can't hide forever." The echo of her name sent chills racing down her spine. In that moment, a decision crystallized in her mind, laced with desperation and defiance. She would no longer be a hunted animal. "We can't let him find us," she whispered urgently to Eric. "We need to find another way out now." Just then, a loud crash erupted from behind them, a door slamming open as if the universe was eager to pull them deeper into the chaos. Go! Eric commanded, pushing her towards a small window near the ceiling, dirt caking the glass as they had no choice left but to climb. As she hoisted herself up, Sarah's heart sank at what awaited outside. It dawned on her that whatever revelations lurked ahead could either forge the truth or shatter her completely. Would the answers bring freedom or doom? The chase was far from over. The window was grimy, the glass barely holding together, but it was their only option. Sarah pushed against the frame, feeling the cool, damp air brush against her skin. She could hear the muffled sounds of the streets above, a chaotic orchestra of fear and confusion reverberating through the walls. "Help me up!" she panted, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Eric hoisted her, their fingers slipping against the grime as they both struggled to adjust their grip. The window creaked ominously, threatening to give way, but she finally pushed through, head first into the unknown. On the other side, she landed with a thud on uneven ground, a pile of debris cushioning her fall. Catching her breath, Sarah glanced around, her heart racing as she scanned their surroundings. The alley was deserted, littered with remnants of a life left behind. Empty bottles and broken crates littered the ground, and the faint glow of streetlights flickered in the distance, illuminating the shadowy corners. "Come on!" she hissed, urgency lacing her voice. Eric climbed through the window, landing next to her. They had no time to waste. "We have to find a place to hide," Eric whispered, peering over the wall, scanning for any signs of the figure. "Right, but where?" She took a step forward, feeling the sharp edge of glass dig into her shoeless foot. Pain shot through her, but she ignored it, forcing herself to focus. Back there, he pointed toward a vacant storefront, its glass shattered and wooden door ajar like an invitation to danger. As they dashed across the alley, Sarah felt the weight of the world pressing down on her. Every footstep echoed like thunder in her ears. The sense of foreboding grew heavier, a thick blanket of dread suffocating any flicker of hope. Inside the storefront, an old table lay on its side, and dust covered the floors like a shadowy snow. They crouched behind it, hearts pounding wildly. Just as they settled into silence, the world outside erupted into a cacophony of shouts and sirens, pulling them every which way. "Do you think he knows where we are?" Sarah whispered, anxiety pouring out in every syllable. "I don't know. But we have to stay quiet," Eric replied, his eyes wide, darting around the dimness. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the direction they'd just come. "Let us just get out of this mess," she urged, her voice trembling, full of a fear she couldn't shake. "I need to know why he's hunting for me." As if on cue, their heartbeats synced just as they caught a glimpse of movement at the entrance of the store. A shadow passed, and Sarah's breath hitched. "Stay low," Eric commanded, his voice barely a breath. She peered through the slats of the table, eyes instinctively searching for any sign of the figure. But there was nothing. Just the strained silence as they both held their breath, waiting. "What if he finds us here? What do we do?" she said, desperation creeping into her voice. Before Eric could answer, a low chuckle seeped into the air, cold and menacing. "You're still running, Sarah? How cute!" His voice was like ice. Her instincts screamed that they needed to move, to escape before it was too late. But where could they go? The walls of the empty store closed in, threatening to swallow them whole. "Sirens and darkness may protect you now," the figure continued, taunting them. "But the truth is waiting. You can't run from your past, and you certainly can't run from me." With each word, a shiver coursed through her. "Eric, we can't let him catch us," she said, her voice rising in panic. "Let us get to the back, now." He grabbed her hand, pulling her toward a door they hadn't noticed before. The tremor in his grip mirrored the fear in her heart. As they pushed through, another loud crash echoed behind them. They stumbled into a back alley and paused. Whatever awaited them felt like a plunge into the abyss, but they had no choice. They took a deep breath, their fates entwined like vines in the dark. But then, a chilling realization dawned on Sarah. What if the truth they were running from was embedded deep within her memories? And what if The figure was the key to unlocking all her hidden secrets. The answers could either set them free or seal their fates forever. The alley was darker than anticipated, shadows swallowing them whole. Sarah and Eric stood still, hearts barreling in their chests. The sound of footfalls echoed behind them, too close for comfort. They exchanged frantic glances, the urgency of their predicament palpable. "Which way?" Sarah whispered, her voice barely more than a tremor. "Down this way, I think," Eric replied, pointing to a narrow corridor that barely seemed wide enough for a body to squeeze through. They crept forward, foggy breaths mingling with the chill in the air. Every inch felt like a mile. The echo of distant screams turned to a horrible symphony, wrapped around them like barbed wire. Sarah swallowed hard, biting back the panic clawing at her throat. "Do you hear that?" Eric's whisper was strained, both of them frozen mid-step. Yes, she felt it deep within her, a creeping sense that they were being hunted like prey in a game of cat and mouse. The unmistakable sound of footsteps, heavy and determined, resonated from the opposite end of the alley. A flicker of movement caught Sarah's eye. She turned, inhaling sharply as a figure emerged, the thick silhouette carved against the dim light. "Meddling kids aren't into you?" The voice sent a wave of nausea through her. It was him. Without thinking, Sarah tugged at Eric's sleeve, heart thundering as they turned down the narrow corridor. Nothing was solid, everything was a gamble. Her pulse raced like wild horses as they pushed through, dodging iron piping and slick surfaces. "Go! Go!" she urged, wanting to push the walls away, to break free from whatever this nightmare had become. They stumbled deeper, their breaths ragged, fueled by pure instinct. Then, Eric paused, fear inscribed on his face. "Wait! What if he knows this place?" Sarah felt her own fear ignite anew. "We can't stop. If we retreat, we'll lose our chance." Behind them, the cadence of footsteps turned into a nauseating rhythm, growing ever closer. It was a countdown. Every second counted against them. They hurtled through a door, slamming it shut just in time. The room was dark, a forgotten space littered with cobwebs and old crates. A faint beam of light filtered through a boarded-up window, illuminating a dust-covered corner. "Now what?" Eric asked, his voice taut with disbelief. "Look for a way out," Sarah replied, scanning the room. She needed an answer. They needed an escape, a salvation from this hell. There has to be something here. Then something caught her eye amidst the shadows. A trapdoor lay partially hidden under a pile of debris, its edges worn but still intact. "Over here!" she shouted, urgency slipping through her cracked confidence. As they hurried over, the door rattled from the other side. The unmistakable sound of pounding fists resonated, sending fresh spikes of terror through Sarah. "We're running out of time." Eric lifted the trapdoor, revealing a staircase spiraling down into absolute darkness. "Are you serious?" he breathed. "Do you have a better idea?" She shoved him downwards, their descent swift and uncertain. The air thickened, wrapping around them like a shroud. But just as they plunged further, a loud crash exploded above, shaking the ground. The figure's laughter echoed, a haunting melody tearing through the silence. "You can't hide from the past. It's always lurking, just waiting to find you." They stumbled down the steps, hearts racing, adrenaline thrumming through their veins. "What does he want from me?" Sarah gasped, fear constricting her lungs. "I don't know," Eric said, voice barely above a whisper. "But whatever it is, we'll figure it out together." Just as they thought they found a moment to breathe, a flickering light caught Sarah's eye at the bottom of the stairs. Was it salvation or further doom waiting ahead? "Are you ready?" she asked, standing on the edge of uncertainty. "What's the plan?" Eric replied, but the worry in his tone did not escape her. "Find the truth. Or die trying." They exchanged one last glance, a silent understanding that every choice had its price. With sheer determination, they stepped forward into the light. But what awaited them could change everything they thought they knew. It was then that Sarah realized perhaps the heart of their nightmares lay deeper than they could imagine, intertwined with the very fabric of her memories. What truth awaited them in the shadows, and how badly would they need to confront it to be free? As they emerged into the flickering light, Sarah's heart raced with a mix of hope and dread. The room was small, cluttered with dusty old boxes and a single window that let in just enough light to reveal the secrets waiting in the corners. Her breath quickened, urgency clinging to the air around them. Eric squeezed her hand, a silent reminder that they were in this together. "We need to find out what is really happening, Sarah. If this man is hunting you, the truth could change everything," he whispered, eyes scanning the space. But questions swirled around Sarah's mind like a whirlwind. Why had she become a target? What secrets did she hold? It felt like pieces of a puzzle that were scattered, each one sharp and jagged against her soul. In the corner of the room, a file cabinet stood slightly ajar. Eric noticed it, nudging it open with a cautious hand. Inside, papers were stuffed haphazardly, revealing scattered notes, personal files, and photographs. Each item felt like a thread unraveling her life. "Sarah, look!" Eric pulled out a photograph, holding it to the light. Her stomach dropped as she recognized the woman in the picture, her mother. "Is this?" "Yes. That's her." A chill ran down Sarah's spine as memories of her mother's laughter filled her mind, memories that had lain dormant too long. But as she reached for the photo, a flash of movement outside the window made her freeze. The hooded man was scanning the area, searching. "Quick! Hide!" Eric hissed urgently, and they ducked behind a stack of crates, hearts pounding as the danger skulked outside. "Do you think he saw us?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know." Eric was peeking through a gap. "But we can't stay here much longer," he replied, anxiety cracking through his calm facade. "We need answers." "Right." The determination surged within her. "Let us find whatever it is he wants and confront it." They started rifling through the cabinet, adrenaline fueling their motions. Sarah's eyes darted across the documents, trying to piece together the fragments of her life that had been masked in shadows. And then she found another photo, this time of a young girl herself, standing beside another little girl with laughter in her eyes. The name scrawled at the bottom sent a jolt through her chest. "Emily." "Emily?" she repeated, disbelief twisting in her mind. Her childhood friend, the girl who had simply vanished from her life. Memories flooded back, games in the park, secrets whispered under the stars. How could she have forgotten? A strange sense of longing wrapped around her heart. "Do you remember her?" Eric asked, his voice urgent, as if sensing the breakthrough. "Yeah," she whispered, choking on the recognition. "But she disappeared. I thought it was just a tragic accident. I never knew why. Maybe it wasn't just an accident." The pile of papers began revealing fragments of Emily's life, linking her to connections Sarah never imagined. Names that sent angry pulses through her vein, powerful names tied to dark dealings. There was something sinister lurking beneath the surface. "Sarah, whatever they're involved in, it has to do with your family. We need to find the truth." She swallowed hard. "And if we confront this man, what if he knows more than we do?" "What if we confront the truth together?" he interrupted, squeezing her hand for strength. "Fight or flight was only ever the first choice. The truth is our only path forward." Before she could respond, the door slammed open. Eric spun around to shield her, their eyes widening as the hooded figure stood before them, the dim light casting eerie shadows across his masked face. "Did you think you could hide from me?" he sneered, voice laced with disdain. Fear coursed through Sarah's veins. "What do you want from me?" she demanded, stepping forward, surprising both him and herself with her audacity. The figure hesitated, caught off guard. "You're asking questions that lead to answers you don't want," he warned, voice dropping to a low hiss. "I want the truth," she shouted, heart hammering. "Very well." The man pulled back his hood, revealing a face marked with old scars and sharp features she never anticipated. Michael. An old connection, someone once close to her family, a shadow from her past she had never wanted to acknowledge. "Why are you doing this?" she pressed, feeling an unlikely strength. "Because," he said, his gaze piercing through her. "Your family's history isn't what you believe it is. It runs much deeper, a legacy obscured by lies. The weight of his words hung heavy in the air. What does that even mean? What you choose to ignore can either shackle you or set you free. Find the truth, Sarah. Meet the legacy waiting for you. With that, his gaze whipped over her shoulder, a slight smirk tracing his lips. Suddenly, a blaring alarm cut through the tension, a siren echoing through the building, chaos blooming outside. You're out of time, he said, almost mockingly. No! Wait! Eric cried, but Michael vanished into the shadows, leaving them with fragments of a revelation that could change everything. Sarah! Eric turned to her, urgency gripping him. We need to go, now! The weight of what lay ahead settled in her chest like lead. But what if we find more than we bargained for? Then we face it together, he said firmly, pulling her close. Starting now. They stumbled out of the cluttered room, racing towards the exit, where the thrumming chaos of the city echoed like a booming heartbeat. With every step through the shadows, Sarah could feel the looming truth press down on her. But the real question simmered: could she embrace the truth that awaited her? As they burst into the daylight, the weight of the world settled around them with a heavy promise, a chase that had only just begun. And deep down, Sarah knew that whatever lay ahead, she was prepared. The storm of her past awaited. It was time to unravel the truth before it unraveled her. Now was the moment to fight. Subscribe immediately so you don't miss the next chapter of Sarah's journey. Smash that like button right now to let everyone know you're excited for what's next. Flood the comments with all your thoughts and theories about the twists and revelations coming ahead. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know Sarah's story. Your support is paramount. Let's grow this community together.